which are quite exciting. So thank you again. I'll go ahead and share my screen, and excuse me in advance if I have any technical difficulties. I went to my office this morning because I have a better setup, and the AC wasn't turned on in our building, so I had to take a quick detour and do an audible, and so I'm at home this afternoon. So I will share my screen. Great. Well, again, as I mentioned, thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity. I'm really excited to spend a little time with this group today, talking a little bit more about Dallas College and what we are doing in the education landscape. My goal this afternoon is really to have a dialogue. And so, as Christine mentioned, please do put questions, comments into the chat, and I let Christine know that she can please interrupt me as she sees fit. So I'm looking forward to our time together. So just a quick overview of sort of how I anticipate framing this. When we talk about the bachelor's degree program that we've developed, we can't talk about that without providing some additional context. And what that means from a Dallas College perspective is spending a little time talking about our history and our recent transition from the Dallas County Community College District to Dallas College. And so as I provide you that context, I think that will help individuals understand how this bachelor's degree program is also being very well supported by the overall structure of our new one college system. So the road to one college. So as many of you know, for 50 years, Dallas County Community College District operated as seven separate individually accredited institutions that served Dallas County. The DCCCD remains one of the largest community college districts in the entire state, serving over 70,000 students. And those 70,000 students have had access to a number of different degree, certificate, and technical programs. So really, the DCCCD really exists to meet the needs of the community and align industry partner, needs so that our students are being productive members of our workforce. So we realized about 2 years ago that there were some roadblocks to students being successful, and one of those key roadblocks was the result of a SAC-COC initiative, or I guess guideline, if you will, that requires students to receive or to take 25% of their courses at an individual college campus. And because so many of our students, are mobile and do take courses at, or did take courses across multiple of our college campuses, we found that many of our students actually had the credits that they needed in order to receive a degree, but because of the SAC-COC rule or guideline, our students weren't able to actually have their degrees awarded. We also found that from a reverse transfer policy or standpoint, this was also inhibiting our students from earning their necessary credential. And so because of that, our leadership and our chancellor and our board started to initiate this process of, in essence, finding ways to break down those barriers. And so this idea to become one college, Dallas College, evolved. And so as I talk to you today, really as of July 3rd of this month, Dallas College became official. And so what that means is that no longer are we 7 separate, independently accredited institutions. Rather, we are a single accredited institution, Dallas College, that has 7 campuses. And within that, we have designed academic school structure. So I always like to say the easiest analogy is to say, we have structured ourselves very similarly to a traditional 4-year institution in which we have academic schools. Again, at the center of everything that we do, and you'll hear me talk about this a lot, over the next hour, is this idea of putting students first and ensuring that everything that we do has a student-centric focus. And so at Dallas College, one of the things that we are really excited about with this transition is to now offer a more streamlined experience for students, for faculty, and for our external stakeholders and our external partners. And so, today we are now Dallas College. I think we are excited about that. And this move to Dallas College has really set the frame and the stage for how we will interact with our community partners, with our students, like the Chancellor likes to say, for the next 50 years. So I'll stop there before I go into this next section and just pause and see if Christine, I don't have access to see the chat, but if there were any questions or if she had any questions specifically about our move or transition to one college, and I'm happy to address those.
So I don't have any questions in the chat right now, but let's go ahead and open it up to everybody. Does anyone have any questions before we move into the specifics of the School of Education and the new BAS degree about Dallas College and the transition from DCCD into Dallas College, how that may affect transfer between the institutions, what it may look like? We do have a question, and this is actually from Collin College. Is there still a child development program at Dallas College? And I think that'd be a good thing to talk about. Existing early childhood education or child development programs, are they now under your umbrella? Are they being centralized from those 7 colleges? What are we looking at?
Absolutely, and great question. And so we'll get to talking to this a little bit more, but I'm happy to address this now. So in short, the answer is, so absolutely, our child development program still exists. Historically, when we operated as DCCD, DCCD had 2 NACCE accredited child development programs, one at Eastfield College and one at Brookhaven College. What the School of Education structure allows us to do is the School of Education will now house all of our education-related programs across the district under this new School of Education umbrella. So again, I have a slide that outlines this, but as I just talked through these, for example, that means all of our AAT programs will be under the Dallas College or the School of Education umbrella. Our AAS and child development will be under the School of Education. Our new bachelor's degree program, all of our career and technical child development certificate programs will be under that umbrella. We have historically have had an alternative teacher certification program at Mountain View College that will ultimately transition under this new School of Education umbrella. And then also we have a number of education-specific and early child-specific early college, high school, and or dual credit pathway partnerships with a number of regional ISDs that have existed, that have historically existed in partnership between one of the 7 individual colleges and that ISD or ISD partners. And now those will all come under the School of Education umbrella, working closely with one of our other new offices, the Office of Educational Partnerships at Dallas College. And so ultimately what this all will do is it will allow us to, first and foremost, provide a more consistent experience for our students. So an example of that Whereas, I mentioned in our old way, or in our old world, we had all 7 colleges had AAT programs. We will continue to have an AAT program at the School of Education, but we will now offer that AAT program under a streamlined experience. So what that means is things like, relooking at syllabi, relooking at textbooks, things like that, so that from a student perspective, if I'm a student, I can still take that AAT class at any of the 7 campuses, but I can do so knowing that that experience will be more streamlined, for example. And then just to close the loop, because the specific question was about child development. So yes, we will continue to have our child development programs. And like I mentioned, the more established child development programs from a geographic location, formerly we're at Brookhaven and Eastfield. And I know that Richland offered some child development programs in CTE as well. Under the one college structure in the School of Education, from a child development perspective, one of the things that we're most excited about is under the School of Education, it will allow us the opportunity to actually expand those type of offerings to additional campuses. And so you'll hear me talk a little bit about, at the core of us offering this degree was really, or building this degree was the need to meet a North Texas demand. And so if we look across the region, what we're able to do now with the School of Education is to really look at other sectors of Dallas County to see how we can, offer these programs at additional campuses. An example is being more intentional about the way in which we work with the southern sector of Dallas. We know there's such a high need for high quality childcare in our southern sector. And so now I'm excited about the opportunity to work with some of our campus partners, our Cedar Valleys, our Mountain Views, to see how we can expand our child development programs to those campuses as well, so they're not just housed, at our Eastfields or our Brookhavens. And then when we're expanding, similarly to what I mentioned with the example from the AAT, is that as we expand, we can also expand intentionally with the lens of ensuring, again, consistent, high quality experience for the students, instead of going about doing these things 7 different ways.
So Rob, thank you so much for that. It sounds like it's a good segue into your discussion of the School of Education and what this degree looks like. We did have another question come in, but I think it's going to be covered as you go through it. So I'm just going to give it to you, but then go ahead and go into the next part of the presentation, and please address this as you go. The question was, will there be lab schools for students to go to for their observations? And I know you have that built in. So I'm going to hand it over to you and continue your presentation.
So the School of Education, as I talked about, the School of Education now exists and now lives, I guess, as one of the 7 new academic schools at Dallas College. And as I mentioned before, the School of Education will house all of our existing education-related degree and non-degree credit and non-credit programs and certifications. It will also, as a school, allow us the opportunity to think more holistically about, imagining this and imagining what all could a School of Education be. And so that's some of the exciting work that we have in front of us, as well as we get the opportunity at Dallas College now to build a brand new School of Education from the ground up. And that's incredibly exciting, because you don't usually get the opportunity to build a brand new school. But to the lab school comment, and I think that I'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's a perfect example of opportunities that exist. So when we think about potential functions of schools, well, could we build a lab school? What role will research and policy have within this new school? what is our role in North Texas in the region to advocate for best practices in whether it's teacher preparation or early childhood education. From a community college standpoint, these are roles and opportunities two-year institutions have not necessarily been at the table and collaborating with partners or four-year institution partners in that way, shape, or form. So while our programs are certainly at the core of what this school is, we are also in the process of having these thought partner conversations of very much in the design stages of what could we do. And I already touched on this a little bit, but these last 2 points of with this new School of Education structure, again, it allows us to operate in a way that that is more consistent, that is more seamless for our key stakeholders, not only for our students, but for our faculty and for our partners. I'll add this at the end again, but from the perspective of this conversation, in which I know there are a number of people on this call and which have been great partners with what was previously the DCCCD, a number of our colleges under the DCCCD umbrella would establish their own partnerships. So there might have been an overall agreement between Dallas County Community College District and X University, but X University might have had different partnerships with each of the individual 7 colleges. Now, as we approach partnerships, we very much are looking forward to approaching our partnerships with, again, with institutions of higher ed, 2- and 4-year partners, with nonprofit organizations, with the philanthropic community, from the lens of Dallas College School of Education. And what that ultimately will do is I'm confident that will allow us to optimize our impact for students and optimize our impact on the community. So let's spend a few minutes talking about this degree, and I like history, so I'll spend a few minutes talking about the history of this. So at the core, we built this degree because there was a need. Back in 2017, the DCCCD at the time commissioned a study, and the study was produced by Deloitte, and they did an analysis of North Texas, specifically an analysis on the state of early childhood education in the region. And as you can see from the slide, one of the key pieces that came out of their study was this need for a whole lot of new early childhood educators. And from our perspective, when we're using the term early childhood educators, we're looking at that from the lens of birth to 3rd grade. And so Deloitte said, North Texas right now has a need, an instant need of about 4,300 early childhood educators. And right now, if you look across the region, we aren't producing nearly enough. And with elements such as, full day pre-K and with HB3, we knew that the need and the demand for high quality early childhood and full day pre-K was only going to increase the number of high quality early childhood educators that this region would need. So back in the 2017 legislative session, the legislator approved community colleges, or gave them the opportunity, approved the community colleges the opportunity to award degrees in what they had deemed 3 high need areas. So one was nursing, one was IT tech, and the other was this early childhood education degree. And so from a regional standpoint, a number of regional stakeholders, and I'll first and foremost need to credit our chancellor for stepping up to the plate and said, why can't Dallas College, why can't DCCCD play a role in this? And that's exactly what Chancellor May did, is he said, if there is a regional need, we want to step up to the plate and help meet this need. So that was sort of the crux from a historical context of the why and the when. And so since 2017, we've been embarking on this journey, not only to become Dallas College, but also to go through the process of, just because the legislator, as most of you know, just because the legislator granted us permission to offer a bachelor's degree in early childhood education, it's a pretty arduous process in order to actually get the approvals. And so this was sort of our, I share this because again, I want to be transparent in our thinking and sort of present you all with our theory of change and rationale for offering the degree. You'll see at the end that one of the things that I definitely would ask as an ask to the audience and will continue to promote is that as I talk about this degree, we need additional champions and advocates of the degree. And so again, I share this because this is the lens that we are thinking about the need and the rationale for the degree. We all know that the importance of children having access to high quality early childhood education. And we also view this as, not only as a ECE teacher pipeline issue, we see this as a workforce issue. And I think now more than ever, as we sit here and are currently living in this pandemic, we are seeing each and every day the impact that childcare and high quality childcare has on our ability to live, sort of our daily lives. And so in building this degree, we wanted to ensure that higher education was accessible. We wanted to ensure that we were not just developing a degree for the heck of developing a degree, but we were developing a degree that was in direct relation to an unmet workforce need. And then we also knew, we know the impact of a child receiving high quality education. And we know the impact from a child development perspective of those first few years of development. And so if we could find a way in which we could marry access and quality, I think that we really feel that there's an opportunity to really start chipping away at that 4,300 number. So from a timeline perspective, before I get into some of the elements of the degree, I will let you know that we began this journey to build this degree. I say, I guess you could date it back to 2017 when we got the stamp of approval. But I would say the journey formally began about 18 months ago in January of 2019. Excuse me. In January of 2019, myself and a team of, I guess a launch team, if you will, from the Dallas County Community College District, set out a plan. And our plan was we needed to develop an 18-month process for a goal of a fall 2020 launch. And there were sort of three big milestones that we needed to, or dominoes, as I like to say, that we needed to knock over in order for us to get to where we wanted to be for a successful fall 2020 launch. And that included approval from the Higher Education Coordinating Board. That included approval from SAC COC. And then the final piece of that puzzle is approval from the State Board for Educator Certification and TEA to become an approved educator preparation program, which will be an element of this degree as well, pending approval. So we have received approval from the Coordinating Board and SAC COC. They have given the stamp of approval to this new 4-year degree, which has been built as a complete 120 semester credit hour 4-year degree. Now, in doing so, we wanted to also ensure that this degree was accessible. And so we spent a lot of time building this degree, ensuring that students would have defined access points, because we also know that our existing population of students could be great, or would be a great target population to continue their education with Dallas College. And so we wanted to be intentional to ensure that we were aligning elements of 2-year programs, existing 2-year programs, such as the AAT and the AAS in child development, with defined pathways that they could seamlessly sort of be articulated into the upper level coursework. We also know that because of the cost advantage of this degree, as it mentions on the PowerPoint, this degree will be offered at the same rate as our lower level courses, which is a huge advantage to students. And again, you'll hear me say this over and over, at the core of a lot of this work is this idea of access. How do we make higher education accessible to previous non-consumers? And we all know that cost is one of those huge barriers to entry. And so because we're removing that cost barrier, we also believe that there's an opportunity to capture sort of a new market of students, to capture students that, as quote unquote freshmen, that now will view Dallas College as a 4-year option. And so we're excited about that as well. The other, I mentioned this a little bit ago, but built into the degree will be certification pathways. So students will be able to, choose to enter and successfully matriculate through the degree plan, and be awarded the degree if they want. If they want the certification pathway, we will also build in initially the new EC3 certificate and an EC6 option. I think down the road, we will look to probably look to see how we will expand some of those certification options. I get the question a lot, what about supplemental certifications, things like ESL, things like special education, bilingual education, things of that nature. And so as we, again, work to gain approval for these core certificates, first and foremost, we will also look to build in additional certification options for students. And the few that I just mentioned are our certification options that, as you all know, are in very high demand by a number of our regional ISDs as well. From a technical component, in terms of like what courses are being offered, how did you decide what you were going to offer? It was a process. So over the course of these 18 months, we have engaged a number of internal stakeholders within the DCCD or Dallas College in the design of the specific degree plan. But we have also engaged a number of external partners. So, engage in conversations with our regional institutions of higher education, and engage faculty at those institutions and leadership at those institutions. We've spoken to our nonprofit and ISD partners to have the conversation of, what skills do teachers coming to your school district need to have? What do you want them to need them to know? And then even looking outside of the state and engaging national thought partners and national teacher preparation and early childhood leaders in this discussion. So what we have is definitely not so what we've been able to produce is an end product that has solicited input, feedback, revision, It's very much been an inclusive process, and a process that, from our nature, we know is not perfect, and our goal is to continue to find ways to reflect and to improve as we learn and gather more data on the student experience. So I'll close with this, and then definitely we'll, hopefully have, lots of time for questions. If I were to say, a lot of people will ask me, well, what can we do to help or support these initiatives? And really, there's three takeaways. One, I really look forward to strengthening existing partnerships that we have, and also finding ways to identify new partnerships. I think that the School of Education, as you heard me speak, provides this whole new world of opportunities, and this whole new way in which we can look to partner with, again, not only institutions of higher education, but also partner with school districts and partner with early child care centers. And so we've started to, again, imagine and have these conversations with partners and organizations of all types, to say, hey, this is what we have, this is what we're building, how can we work together? Because at the end of the day, I think our goal and our partners' goal are very similar, in which, one, we want to ensure that we're providing a pathway so that students can be successful in earning and completing credentials, and we want those credentials to translate to successful entry into the workforce. The second piece is, just as I'm doing today, I always want to leave partners and individuals that I have the opportunity to speak with sort of empower them to champion this work. And so what I mean by that is, we have I already mentioned the need to elevate the prestige, this idea of early childhood education in our region and across the country, to be quite honest. And so I think this is a small step that we can take as an institution to first name it. We have a bachelor's degree program in early childhood education and teaching. So Texas has not previously had that. So I think first and foremost, by building it, by naming it, we're hoping that elevates, the work first and foremost. And the other piece is, the teacher certification piece with EC3. This is a new certificate, and so with anything new, there's going to be a lot of eyes on it, and there are a lot of questions from stakeholders, districts, principals, superintendent on, and so we're hoping, we're coming to the table to say, hey, you know what, teaching a kindergartner is not the same as teaching a sixth grader. And so in order to do so, we need to be very intentional and specify the training of our teachers, so that that's going to be a narrative that I'm going to call my colleagues and friends, on this call, whether it's faculty or leaders, that we're going to have to be vocal when we're talking to our ISD partners and things of that nature, and to future teachers, to say, hey, if you really want to distinguish yourself as an early childhood educator, this is the pathway that you need to take, and these are the skills that you need. And then we want to also have that same message to principals and to superintendents to say, hey, if you want high quality early childhood educators, you need to look for educators that have this certificate. So that's something that I'm hoping that we can continue to champion and advocate for. And the final piece is, again, this is just a sort of a me lending a hand or an offer, is we are one of the first to embark on this journey. I really hope that there are many more to follow, because if there are more institutions, 2- and 4-year, that start offering this degree. That helps address bullet point 2. And so, we are, this is new territory as being sort of trailblazers in this work. And, I'm hoping that we will eventually have additional colleges and universities engage in this work also. And I've had the pleasure to speak to a number of 2-year universities across the state that have reached out already and are interested in this work. And I, again, invite everyone to please feel free to reach out in any capacity. And we're not shy here. We definitely, and I am definitely willing and open to share our struggles, our lessons learned, our high and low points, because this is definitely, to this last point, this is all work in continuous improvement, and I think that that's the lens that we are approaching this work for as well. You can't enter work that is trailblazing with the idea of, we can't go about it if it's not going to be perfect. We know that there's going to be challenges. We know that we're going to make mistakes, but we have to be able to learn from our mistakes and move forward, because at the end of the day, we know that this is an opportunity that will positively impact the students that we serve and the Dallas County as a whole. So I'll stop there and just open it up for questions.
Okay, so we have several questions that have come in and also some information that's been posted. So for anyone participating today, Anna Mays from Dallas College is on this meeting, has also shared, though, that she can answer any questions that any of you may have about how this new program will change dual credit agreements and transfer articulation agreements. She also just posted in the chat the link to this bachelor's degree program in the Dallas College catalog. So I wanted to let you know about both of those things. So here's a first question for you, Rob. What if someone would like to pursue this degree, not to teach or become certified, but to move on to a master's program in instructional design? Would students be required to complete the field experience? How would you supplement those courses or hours? So as you've been talking with universities, have you been talking about how this bachelor's degree might prepare students for master's degrees?
That's a really good question as well. So in transparency, that is on our radar, but those conversations have not yet developed. The first conversations that we've been having and are the focus of our conversations with universities have been in this role of, first and foremost, seeing how we can articulate our 2-year into the 4-year existing programs, and this idea of potentially reverse transfer from a university back to Dallas College from an undergraduate landscape. With that said, directly related to the question, there's a long list of opportunities that we have on my whiteboard of things we need and possibilities that we can work with institution or our 4-year partners. So I fully imagine, I think it's a great idea, but no, nothing has formally been discussed, or there aren't any formal undergrad to graduate pathways that we've discussed yet. But I think that that's definitely something that's on our horizon. We needed to first make sure that our degree got approved in July, and so now that it is, I think that opened the floodgates to ways in which we can and hope to partner with our 4-year universities. But by all means, I hope that whoever asked that question reach out to Anna Mays and and we will start that dialogue.
Yeah, I think that's great that you kind of have it on your whiteboard and it's something to think about, because that's another avenue to explore. Another question, and this is from an internal Dallas College person who is wondering, when will this degree plan appear in eConnect for students to select as a degree plan? Is it available? And if not, when? Do you have that information? Or Anna, I know you're with us and you've just unmuted. Can you share?
It is available as a result of it being in both our catalog as well as being approved by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board and SAC COC. So those students entering fall can declare this as a program study.
Great. So we had another question. Oh, go ahead, Rob. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the one caveat to that is I think I mentioned that the upper level courses in the degree plan won't be offered until fall 2021. So as it relates specifically to this question, for a number of our new students or students that are, still in their associate degree trajectory, one of the things we've been articulating to students and to advisors is to continue to remain on their existing degree plans for reasons related to financial aid. So with all this as well, because this is a brand new degree plan, we are also going into the process of working with the Department of Education to get this new degree approved by the Department of Ed for financial aid. And because that obviously takes time and isn't yet finalized yet, the message is if you are a new student or you are a current student that still has some courses in an associate degree program, stay on that program or select the AAT or the AAS right this second, because those are eligible for financial aid. And as I mentioned, also are transferable to the bachelor's degree. And once the bachelor's degree is approved for financial aid, which we anticipate being relatively soon, then students will be able to, or more encouraged to select that degree plan too.
Great. So we have several more questions. One about the year-long clinical component. Is this full-time student teaching? And what ISDs are you partnering with to provide the mentor teachers?
That's all good. Those are good questions. Right now, those have not yet been formalized. The student teaching and the apprenticeship or the residency component will be components of year 3 and year 4 of the program. And again, because those components will not be offered until starting next fall, the identification of specific ISD partners is something that we're currently in the process of. Those are conversations that we're currently having. In regards to the question as it relates to full-time or part-time, we envision this degree being accessible to students achieving multiple pathways. So, we will have, an end goal. These are standards and requirements that you must meet to be sort of a day one ready educator. But we also understand that students might navigate different paths to get there. So there will be a pathway for part-time students to meet that threshold, and ways in which full-time students can do so. But the formality of those ISD requirements for what that looks like from a student teaching or apprenticeship or residency component will be fleshed out over the course of this next year.
Great. Now we have another related question. How many people will your program accept, and how will applicants be chosen?
I always get that question. So the short answer to the question is it depends. And the reason I say it depends in terms of how many people will you accept is because, again, we are now looking at who is a student in a completely different lens. We are now not looking at a student of who is just in an AAT or an AAS program. We're looking actually intentionally at all the students that are in the School of Education in one of those programs as potential bachelor's degree students, especially if they're in their lower level. So again, I'll give you an example is we've run some numbers just right now of students across Dallas College that are in education, one of those education pathways at a lower level. There are about 3,000 students in those courses. So does that mean that all those students will then matriculate to the upper level courses? No, but those lower level courses are part of the bachelor's degree component as well. So that's sort of the longer answer. I think the more defined answer is for the upper level courses, especially during these first few years, there will be an admissions process. The application for admissions to entry into the upper level courses will be available beginning this fall 2020. And we definitely envision implementing some sort of cohort model in order to address, again, specific cohorts or types of students. So whether that be, cohort of, again, full-time students, cohort of part-time students, cohort of, of teacher assistants or paraprofessionals from ISD A, B, or C, or early child care workers working in centers right now. That's the thinking of our approach. And so of the number of cohorted students, we've thrown around a number. I envision year one, fall 2021, there would be somewhere between, 100, let's just ball about 100 students taking those upper level courses for year one. But again, that's just a ballpark figure. And those are things that we are still, again, it really depends on the regional need, and we know the regional need is big. So I think that we also want to create structures and systems within our School of Education that can support, a cohort of a size that meets the regional need.
Okay, we have several other questions, and these are about other paths to entry. So you've talked about those students who would be moving from current Dallas College programs into this new baccalaureate degree. This question is, what if a person already has an associate's in early childhood, either from Dallas College or from another institution? What will that look like? Because, you have the upper level courses that'll be ready to go starting next year. What does their admission path look like? We've talked a little bit about how you're working that out, and it depends, but anything you have about that. And then another path, what if you have a student who is currently at a university, but because of your ability to provide a bachelor's degree at a much lower price point, what about those students who are in education programs at a university who've completed some of their higher level courses and want to transfer to you for your bachelor's? When and how will you evaluate their transcripts? When would they know what courses would be accepted or not accepted?
So I'll answer the second one first, or at least shed some light, and then please, Anna, jump in as well, because I know that you are much more the expert on this idea of reverse transfer than I am. So as I mentioned, we definitely view that as a path for students, and so in that we are looking to work with our four-year university partners to develop formal reverse transfer pathways. And in those conversations, I think that we will look, especially with upper level courses, to see which specific upper level courses we will accept or not accept. So again, we have a little more time. Those things will be formalized over the course of this next year. So what I can answer is, we're not going to accept. And I know there's SACS limits and things of that. We're not going to, if a student has one class left to get their bachelor's degree, they're not going to come to us, because, but there are ways in which I think that we want to ensure, again, we want to provide access. We want to provide streamlined pathways. And I think that we also want to make sure that we're being smart and good partners with our four-year institutions to make sure that those reverse transfer pathways make sense too.
And the only thing I'd like to add is that a student, in order to get the degree awarded by our institution, would need to have 25% of the credit hours completed at Dallas College. So the situation that Rob mentioned, where a student only has one or two classes, would not qualify to, get the degree from Dallas College.
Right, they'd have to do that last 30 hours.
Right.
Yeah, at the institute.
And can you repeat the first question, Christine, so I make sure I address that too?
It was for people who already hold the associate's degree.
Yep, absolutely. So as I mentioned, the goal, the entire degree was built with existing relevant related associate degree programs in mind. And so just for a few examples, the AAT to the BAS is the cleanest and the most seamless, sort of transition. So if a student already has an associate degree, if the associate degree is an AAT, 100% of that AAT would be accepted. Now that student would still have to go through an application process and gain admission to that upper level coursework. But if they had an AAT, they wouldn't have to take any other additional courses. If it is a general AA or a general AS, right now we are again finalizing some of those prereq courses that we will ask students to or recommend students to take prior to gaining admission into or applying for admission. And then if from a child development perspective, and again in full transparency, this is a conversation that we are still in the midst of what does the pathway from the AAS to the BAS look like. As I've spoken to many of my colleagues, that pathway, if we're still looking for the goal of having students complete a bachelor's degree in 120 semester credit hours, the math doesn't work out in that transition from meeting all the degree requirements, being core complete, having X number of upper level coursework courses required, having the courses that you need to take in order to be eligible to sit for the certification exam, things of that nature. So again, this is new. And so we are in conversations with, again, our experts internally, our degree people, the coordinating board to say, how can we make this work from an AAS to a BAS? But like I said, we're open, we're being creative. Examples of that is looking at things such as, upper level courses that we've built that can be counted for the core. Child development courses that a student may take at the lower level that we may be able to substitute upper level courses in similar content. So those are all things. And again, every student is going to be different. So it's not, especially if we're talking about an AAS, a student could take, there's thousands of different possible, electives and things that they could take in order to get that AAS. So that's the other thing that we've been very sort of open with advisors and faculty, is that during this review process of students that are going to be admitted or looking for admission, is every student academic history and their transcript will be evaluated, and there might and so there will be formal processes and formal prereqs that students have to meet. But we also don't want to create barriers that are not in the best interest for students too. So formal pathways will be developed so that students have a guideline of, especially those students that are on AAS pathways.
Okay, so now I have a group of questions. I'm going to put them together that really are related to the transition from DCCC to Dallas College and what that means for those courses and programs. So I'm going to give you both of these questions together because they're related. One is, as the streamlining of the current education course syllabi begins and continues, how will instructors be a part of these decisions, and when will that streamlining begin? So EDUC 1301, 2301, and other current courses. And then also, when deciding books and materials for math courses, will current faculty teaching these courses be involved in the decision making? So these are some kind of internal questions about how you're addressing it, but I think it's interesting to talk about that when you have these 7 separately accredited institutions all becoming one.
No, absolutely. So I'm going to answer that question generally, and because this is the general approach that Dallas College is taking. And again, if Anna's still there, I would love her to chime in as well. But But as part of our new structure, one of the new offices or departments that we have created is we have created an Office of Academic Services. And so we have a new Senior Vice Provost of Academic Services. His name is Greg Morris. And so one of his big tasks moving forward is to assemble a team to in essence define and create these processes that will shape the way in which our institution operates from a instructional effectiveness and academic effectiveness piece. So how will books be chosen? How will curriculum be streamlined? What are goals and metrics that each school will be accountable for? Those are all, what are institutional policies, things of that nature. Those will all live in-house in his office. So, I will not, as a School of Education, have my own way of doing things, and then the School of Business will have their own way of doing things. Again, we're still even though we are one college, we are definitely still in a period of ongoing transition, and this ongoing transition will continue to evolve and take place over the course of the next year. And I'm sure some elements will continue to iterate and evolve too. When you have 7 different colleges and you become one, there is, as you can imagine, there are a number of moving pieces, especially because operating as a single institution, each institution did things a little differently. And so, again, I'll just close with reiterating of those decisions and those pieces will evolve, and live under the Office of Academic Services, and then the individual schools will help to cultivate those institutional policies and drive that work within the relevant programs and the courses that represented at their individual school.
Great, thank you. We only have time for one more question, and I think you've addressed this a little bit, but I'm going to throw it out to you. So this is another what if. What if a student completed an associate's degree with one of the BCCCD, now Dallas College campuses, had transitioned to a university, had 1 or 2 courses left, wanted to transfer back to Dallas College because they wanted both their associates and bachelors from Dallas College? Would they have met the 25% residency requirement? Now, my understanding is that you wouldn't be able to do that. You would have to have more of the upper level coursework in residence, but it's a what if, so have you thought about that?
I think we've thought about a lot. As I mentioned, because this is new, we know that there are an unlimited amount of what if scenarios. So our approach to this is, we have developed sort of a core approach. We will have non-negotiables that are built into the degree, that I don't care, your scenario, if you don't meet these non-negotiables, then it doesn't matter. But then also that's a balancing act between also individually evaluating the merit of each student and acknowledging that each student does have their own individual circumstance. So, have we thought about, every specific situation? Absolutely not. Some of this will be a learning for us. We anticipate, as I said, we're going to learn a lot, and we're going to see over the course of the next 2 years what types of students actually are drawn to this. And I think that the more data we get and the more scenarios we see, we can then be flexible and adopt to meet the needs of the students, and also work with our 4-year partners to develop systems and processes that also are aligned with them, because they're also vital to our success in the work. And so I'll sort of close with that message, is that in all this, we definitely want to reiterate that 4-year partners, that we really look forward to continuing our relationship with 4-year partners, to strengthening our partnerships with with four-year partners for our students that want to transfer to four-year institutions. And I think that all this will help solidify.
Thank you, Rob. Well, we've reached the end of our time for today. I want to remind everyone that the video of this presentation, the PowerPoint itself, and the guided pathway to Dallas College's new BAS will be available on our event site. Usually takes an hour or so for me to get those posted. That anything that we have held is in our archive, and so basically you can go to events, drop down to 1920, and you can access all of our lunch and learns and access this material. And so with that, I hope you enjoyed today's lunch and learn, and we'll say goodbye for now. Thank you, Rob.